Questions? Up front, the gentleman with the tie. I think I can't see from, I must say, with the being blinded here.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jacopo Brissinotti from ENAV, the Italian navigation service provider. I will go down the line with that Jeff has put forward that, of course, we need to improve a lot the cost recovery. We are on a natural monopoly, and the way you circulate competition is to use a performance-based organization. But I think there are two main guidelines. One is this one, so we need to work hardly on performance, and we need to convert completely our model inside a performance-based model. And this is true. But I think this is one of the main guidelines. But there is another guideline, which is a second guideline, which is the fact that Dieter was raising before, that we are not under control of our growth, meaning that the traffic can grow, can drop. It's not under our control. And so this second leg, which is also very important, means that we need to have a system in place which enables us not, because we can do all the best in performance. If we were all, let's say, assuming that this year we were all performing in a really an incredible way already, completely performance-based organization with strong regulators allowing for this success, we would still be suffering in an important way. Why? Because we're not under control of the growth of traffic, of course. We're not under control of the market. So this second leg needs to be tackled as well. It's an important leg. We need to find a way that goes beyond the year, and we need to control and stabilize through mechanisms, which I think, Jeff, you were saying that, of course, the airlines are not willing to create stabilization fund in favoring. But I think there are various models and various ways which would enable, also at this stage, to allow the NSPs to have a stability, since we are an important infrastructure. This infrastructure has different business cycles than the airlines, and this business cycle needs to be guaranteed. And in order to guarantee the business cycle, you need to allow for more than 1 year in order to stabilize in the years to come. So my question is, okay, first point, okay. On the second point, I think we need also to act. And on the second point, we need to find a way in which we manage and stabilize the charges for the airlines.
If I may respond, I mean, one of the reasons why the cost recovery system today is so stupid is because we, collectively, have some self-imposed restraints in there. And that's one of the reasons why we're working with some of you, and we have some arrangements in place already, working towards 3 to 5 year pricing agreements. Because then, not strictly true, but it doesn't matter if you make a big under-recovery this year, if you can smooth it out over 3 to 5 years. And so there are a lot of artificial constraints in there. I mean, cost recovery itself. The cost recovery system allows you to recover full cost. It doesn't instruct you to do it in most cases, although there is some regulation in some countries that that's the case. So some of our fault is self-constrained, and some of it is with your governments. But that doesn't mean to say that you cannot deal with those issues within a cost recovery sort of cycle. So working with us on 3 to 5 years pricing agreement, taking the rough with the smooth, but actually within a certain band, and say, look, provided traffic doesn't move by plus or minus X% outside of a reasonable range, we can deal with lots of these issues. But you've got to sit down and talk about it, and you've got to understand what the issues are and what the constraints are, and get rid of the barriers.
Jacopo, could I just come back to you on one point? I don't buy the argument that you make there that traffic is out of our control, because really, no matter what business you run, whether you're running a supermarket, you can't know how many people are going to come in. If you're running a train service, you don't know how many passengers. The same with the infrastructure. I think that's a little bit kind of too easy to say traffic is out of control, you've got to wait for the airlines. We've got a business. We can do something to make it cost effective. We can do something to help with demand. And this long investment cycle kind of argument, I think, is what actually gets us into the kind of place that we are. I think demand is an issue that every single business faces. And at the moment, demand is out of everybody's control, regardless of whether you're running a supermarket or whether you're running a barber shop. You can't be always saying we have no control over demand. Don't buy that one.
Yes, Mark?
I have to say that the system Jeff is asking, or Jacopo is asking, is already existing in Europe. This is in the charges scheme, what is named the alternative system incentive to performance, which is mainly based on cost, but which allows to have a more flexibility, not to cover exactly the cost year after year, but to have a pluri-annual approach. It is said 5 years an example, but you can have a 3 years approach. And the only thing that you need to have a performance plan for these 5 years. And if you have it, you can have some way to organize your unit rate on the 5 years in a smooth way. So mainly based on cost, but of course, as you have an increased risk, you can also cover the cost of this risk, but it's the cost of the risk, it's nothing else. And so this system is existing. And my question is, and you don't need to be privatized. I'm not privatized, you can do it. But why NATS is the only one using this system? The system is still existing. It's not even a system that you can find in CES2 regulation. This system is still existing in CES1 regulation. And so I think we should apply it already because it is already existing. It offers, I think, everything we are discussing here.
Okay, sorry, okay. I saw Ralph Riedler had his hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Ralph Riedler, DFS. I can follow all what has been said with my brain, but I have a tummy as well. And this is why I have a question for Jeff. Jeff, whenever there is a crisis, I feel that the ANSPs, and I think we do have a long-standing development between the last 10 to 15 years, how we improved and how we developed. But whenever there's a crisis, I feel that we are beaten in circles by the airlines. And whenever the crisis is over, nobody talks about what we have talked in the crisis. Then we are back to square one and we continue as ever. We did that after the oil crisis, we did it after 9/11, and now we are in the next crisis. So my question is, how serious are the motions from the airlines really to change the system hand in hand with the ANSPs? Because this is what I miss in all these discussions, although I can follow the arguments, of course.
Okay. First, I'd like us to be out of crisis so that we could experience that. It seems to be a long time ago since we were not in crisis. For us, this is absolutely why we want to get into 3 to 5 year pricing agreements, because it isn't just a pricing agreement, because as some of you know, we have industrial partnership agreements with Ostro Control and Bulazzo, for example. You have to lay down the principles of that. And whilst it might not be contractual, you get a much better understanding of what's going to happen. You know, if things change, what's going to happen, what's the long-term objectives you're trying to achieve, and what's the short-term pain you're going to go through. So you tend to have that sort of discussion. And much as I was amused with Eamon's presentation as well, you know, I think sitting down and talking is absolutely key to business. And you've got to establish the business relationship and the principles on which you're doing business with each other. Now, part of the difficulty that I have in my job, quite frankly, is controlling our airline members to do and make them do the right thing. And some of you will and have already said to me in the last day or two here again that, you know, part of our problem is, well, the airlines aren't playing their part because they're not giving us traffic forecasts, or they're not playing the game this way or that way. Get exactly the same issue 10 times from the airports. But part of that problem is because nobody's actually set down the rules of the game. And we can do that through industrial partnership agreements a little bit. Now, I don't want that to sound too bureaucratic or too simple, but frankly, when you've got two sides standing out here shouting at each other and doing negotiation at arm's length, it's really, really difficult to avoid precisely what you've just described. And I'd also turn it around the other way and say, actually, there's nothing to stop the ANSPs doing exactly the same thing. So how do you actually bring people together and hold them together through the good times and the bad times, and actually have a bit of honour and principle amongst thieves? You know?
Okay, we have time for one more question. Got a choice. Bonnie, I think. Yes.